Eh,
Indian River Connections brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more. Sponsored by Gus Curran's House of Champions.
Hi, Joanne.
Hi. How are you doing?
Good and you. We're back with another episode of the Board Report with a school board update.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this one has got a contentious topic that seems to be, the mood around town. John might be joining us. We know he's on the road, so he might drop in late. But who do we have tonight with us, Joanne?
We've got Thomas Augustus, editor-in-chief of the Sunshine Journal, and we've got Jennifer Pippin, Indian River County's Moms for Liberty chairman. So this is going to be a great hot topic, and it really pokes at me because I'm listening to what's going on and I've been watching the videos. And as you guys know, I worked for the school district for 16 years. So I'm just listening to stuff that's happening here. And I'm like, this has got to stop. It has got to change. And we have to start focusing on the kids. And I know that Jennifer Pippin was there on Monday. Thomas was there on Monday. So I really want to have this discussion with them tonight. I think it's something that people need to listen to and understand what's really happening here. And what's really happening here, I'm going to throw it out there. And some people, it might be hard for them to hear, but this is an order that is giving the NAACP to use reverse racism as a tool. And I'm saying it. That's really what it is.
It definitely seems that way. And it seems like that is the narrative, really. Like, in order to correct the racism, we're overcorrecting. And now we're seeing a lot of reverse racism, not just in the school district, but everywhere. Public opinion, it just, we see these, I don't know, these characters that, and I think I said this in a group chat. It's no matter what you do or what light you shine on some of these characters, any publicity is good publicity. And any good publicity for them is bad publicity for the good guy. No matter how good the good guy is, no matter what attention you give these people, these characters in these unemployable DEI positions, it's going to be good for them. And we saw the kid that stabbed the one kid in the chest. I mean, their GoFundMe reached, I don't know the numbers. They're dropping millions of dollars to these people. And then
it makes no sense.
Mangione. It's just like this narrative against everything that's right. I hate to say that. It just seems to breed more attention for him and more publicity. In fact, one of the people we'll be talking about this evening, who spoke at that school board meeting on social media, even said that she's unemployed right now. She can use all the publicity she can get. So we're not going to try to do that for her. But it's going to be an interesting show. Don't go anywhere. We're going to play our sponsor's ad. Thanks to Gus Curran's House of Champions. We're proud to have him as a sponsor, and we're hopefully making him proud to sponsor us. So if you don't have anything else, I'm going to throw it to our sponsor, Joanne, and we'll be back with you, Thomas, and Jennifer.
Yeah, let's hit it.
All right.
Tired of the same old workout? Come knock out your fitness goals at Gus Curran's House of Champions. Founded in 1996 right here in Vero Beach, Florida, our Hall of Fame trainers will push you to your limits and beyond. Whether you're a beginner or a pro, we have the perfect class for you, including the one-of-a-kind rock-steady Parkinson's training. So come join the fight and unleash the champion inside you. Give them a call, 772-713-1157, or go to gchouseofchampions.com.
Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. Man, this is a hot topic that I'm very excited for us to all share. And I really think the community really needs to know what's going on here and what's happening. And, that meeting on Monday was just so fiery. I wish I was there, but I was watching.
It wasn't a book meeting, but it was up there.
It's the new culture war. You'll see it in 32963, I'm sure, here soon.
Yeah,
So.
even though they've promoted it forever.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that the kids are the ones that are really suffering after all of this. We saw what we actually saw was the NAACP decide who the board members can be and not be, and pretty much force the board to make a decision to kick off a minority, a Puerto Rican woman like myself, off the board. Why? Because she came up with facts and she spoke of facts. And that's not what they want to hear. They want to keep having the upper hand of controlling this. And we've seen video after video that they have these issues with definitions and terms. And like Moore said, they're not moving forward. And it's a waste of our money. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are going out the door.
Let me just say something about that money thing, because Moore brought it up in the meeting. Jennifer, you'll remember this. He said, well, it's part of the retainer fee, and we haven't gone beyond our retainer fees. You got to understand, they started doing the deseg order work group in 2022. All the meetings prior to December, I think there were 4 of them, were under mediation. They were private and they had to pay for that. We had to pay for that, and the IRC NAACP had to kick in half. In December, they became public. And then you remember this, Jennifer, I guess it was March or April or February of 23, did not the law firm ask for another $100,000 a year? And they approved it?
They sure did.
And we've always said it's $105,000 a year to do this. That's what we came up with, the averages. You had did all the work on that. And so, yeah, okay, it's coming out of the retainer fee, but the retainer fee went up 50% in one vote over this.
Right. Well, and the retainer fee, that could be going to different things. So God forbid we do get sued again as a school district, or, there is another suit that, that money could be coming out of. Right. So, I mean, who knows? They could ask for another $100,000 if they get sued again for whatever reason. So in my opinion, to say that it's not coming out of taxpayer fund, it absolutely is, because that retainer is going to the lawyer representing us, and the other party, the NAACP, their lawyers are pro bono. So it's not costing them anything unless they go to mediation, and it costs them half the money.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So where else do you want to start, Joanne?
Let's start with Mershon Green. I don't want to give her too much notoriety because she was very uninformative. She said it was a gross lack of understanding. So let's see. Let's start
Speak about the desegregation order and the negative perception spoken when discussing it. It's clear that there's a gross lack of understanding on what the desegregation order is and what it is meant to achieve, as evidenced here tonight. Is it awful that we're in the year 2025 under a desegregation order from 1967?
You know what? Absolutely, it is awful. And when she's talking about, and this is what I wanted to bring up, the desegregation order from 1967, that's got 8 titles to it. And none of them talk about a KPI program. That desegregation order covers voting rights, public accommodations, desegregation of public facilities, desegregation of public education, expansion of civil rights commissions. I mean,
hold on. I think a little bit. The desegregation order from 67, you're right. It doesn't talk about key performance indicators. You're absolutely right. But there's that U.S. integration policy and civil rights and all that. And then there's one specifically for the schools. So I don't want to confuse the two, but the reality of that is you're absolutely right. It does have the sections in it, so to speak. I talked to Jennifer about this in the past. It is one of the foundations of school choice in Florida.
That's right.
Rightfully so. And the point of all that is that, you know, it was about getting rid of a dual school system. We've talked about this, Joanne. You know, the black schools and white schools. And you got to understand, back in the day with property taxes and the black schools being in lower income areas, they didn't get, the counties would distribute based on property values. So,
right.
You know, I've been doing some research on this back in the early 60s, going through some of the old newspapers in the Press Journal, and you find testimony after testimony about how the white schools during segregation were better equipped than the black schools. I mean, tennis courts without nets, and they're teaching tennis. So you know, because the money's not there. And I understand why people are a little unnerved by what was, but that's not the case today. Actually,
No, it's not.
In our court, all of our facilities have reached unitary status.
Yeah, and it's not the case today. I mean, I remember when I moved to Vero Beach, I was like, I live in South Vero, you know, around 48th, where Glendale Elementary was, but my kids weren't going to a middle school here. They weren't going to Oslo. They were going to Gifford. And when I first took the bus to Gifford and drove through the Gifford neighborhood, I was like, why are my kids going to this school? And I realized that they desegregate the kids from that neighborhood so that they're dispersed out to all the different neighborhoods that have the higher property taxes. So that's been done away with. These kids are spread out, and there's programs and there's buses taking them there. You have the Boys and Girls Club. So I don't get where Sean is saying that we are not following a desegregation order, that we're not following the 1967 deseg order. We are, you know, we're doing everything. Our school is not segregated. It's full of diversity.
Integrated. It's fully integrated.
It is, absolutely. Well, and continuing in her speech, you know, she says that, you know, African American students and African American you know, staff are being mistreated. And we did a public records request on that. Thomas has done previous public records requests if there's been any formal complaints. So much of this speech and so much of the banter for 3 minutes is absolutely false information. And for anybody who doesn't know, a public records request, as taxpayers, you can request information from your elected officials or any business done through the county commission, school board, city councils, and because it's paid with taxpayer funds, you can get that information. So it's not a secret. It's not something that we've, you know, found illegally. We did a public records request and found that the majority of what she had said in her 6 minutes of everything that she, you know, said in her 2 speeches at the school board meeting was misinformation.
It really was. And, you know, and then Jackie jumped in and she asked the questions, do we have any unfair hiring practices? If anything, they're overcorrecting, because what they're actually doing now is they are looking at contract employees and not looking at merit-based contract employees and renewing them according to their merit base. Now they have a KPI that they have to meet. So if their numbers are low, they don't have to renew a merit-based contract employee to keep them on board. They're saying, hey, we can remove that person and put a Black African-American person in that position so that they can meet our KPIs.
Well, and I would say to that, you know, the reality of all this is that there aren't a lot of teachers to choose from for a district like ours. We're a smaller county in a huge state. There is a national teacher shortage already. The only thing that's happening with us is, I would say, to counteract that, is our enrollment's going down, so we don't have to hire as many people anymore. And that's another topic entirely. So
it is another topic. But when you talk about the KPIs, you're talking about not just teachers, but you're talking about staff. So it goes across the board for African American
It's true.
people.
It's true. And we, when they went to mediation, it brought on this work group. They also went to mediation, and administrative staff, not administrative staff, but all the support staff and stuff. I think that is also has been taken care of in the desegregation order. There's a unitary status. I have to go look at that. I was reading that opinion, the final report from that mediation, and a lot of the support staff and all that stuff's taken care of. It's instructional staff, teachers, and students.
So that means if you're a contract employee, there is no guarantee that your merit-based performance is going to keep you in your job. If those KPIs aren't met, somebody is going to lose their job and not be renewed, so that a Black person, Black African American person, can get in there and the KPIs can be met.
That's right. So what we've done too, Joanne, I don't know if you're aware. So this past week, we have filed some formal complaints with the DOJ on the desegregation order. There's been other desegregation orders across the country that have been removed because of President Trump's executive orders. We sent to the DOJ also the policies that currently have African American students being disciplined at the district level and all other races disciplined at the school level, and a couple other things that are affecting children today. So it's the children in the schools today are directly being affected by these policies. So we're interested to see if the AG is going to reach out on this, the Attorney General, or if the Federal Department of Justice is going to do anything, because we felt after this meeting, we definitely had to do something and try to get the ball rolling. And the legislative session just ended today. So what better time to, help the kids out in our school district, and hopefully, the other school districts in Florida that are still under desegregation order as well.
Yeah, I believe there are 10 other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true, because the deseg order will have an effect on your disciplinary performance, like what kind of accountability actions you'll take. If they've got Black African American students that have met a quota of being suspended, they're going to take other recourse to keep them from suspending more of them, but that wouldn't happen amongst the other races.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Your ratio within the desegregation order.
That's
number.
right.
That's
and
right.
That's what's bad about this KPI. It's not about merit-based performance. It's about data and meeting number quotas. And you can't guarantee that, especially when you're talking about a race that is a small percentage of all the other collective races together, and they'll call me a white person. I'm Puerto Rican, although some of my family, you would call a brown person, but because my skin is light, I'm a minority. I won't be counted as a minority. I'll be counted in that white category. So it's affecting the numbers negatively, and it's giving them a tool to put in reverse racism is what's happening.
It's affirmative action under a different name. So to me, it's just, it doesn't represent true equality of opportunity. And that's what really this is about. I did a public records request all the way back to 2018. I asked annually, who's filed formal complaints of discrimination? I did it for, there's five categories in the policies for administrative, instructional, students, support staff, and I can't think of the fifth one. So, and everyone, it's non-discriminatory equal access policy, and that's how it goes. So I did it for all of them. Students, not a one, since this joint plan. Teachers, not a one. So, people aren't complaining, but people are certainly politicking.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole thing with Rosario was doomed from the start, because as soon as she was appointed, they went to the press. Tony Brown didn't respect the process of the desegregation order in the work group. He went to the press and said she's going to be divisive. On May 2nd in 2024, in the 32963, I can quote him. You know, it's ridiculous. The guy went right to the press and said she's going to come in here and be divisive. What did he say exactly? He said, we knew this was going to happen. Well, no, I'm sorry. But now she's got to deal with, the article quoted, we expect she's coming in to be divisive and disruptive, Brown said. But now she's got to deal with what's already memorialized in court, a judge who doesn't tolerate nonsense, and a pretty good team of lawyers. She's not going to be able to get away with the stuff she pulls off the school board. What kind of comment is that?
Mm-hmm.
And this went on and on and on the whole time.
Right.
Go ahead,
This is a federal court case. It's the school district of Indian River County now versus the NAACP. It wasn't always that way, right, Thomas?
No, it wasn't.
How does the NAACP get to dictate who is being litigated against them? So, I mean, if you break it down and you're having a kindergartner, do a case and, you have a judge and you have a plaintiff and you have a defendant, how does the case get to pick who is going to be on the work group against them? Just like we have no say who was on the NAACP work group.
Right.
One of them got fired for sexist and racist remarks. One of them got fired for their DEI job in Orlando. So we can't pick and choose and say, hey, one of your people got, fired for racist and sexist remarks. You cannot be on this committee to have the desegregation order done. So, how can they come in and say that? Even Marshawn Green said in one of the work group meetings, you're not going to be on this work group. So, how does
that October 28th? Go ahead.
Pick that? Right. How does the opposition get to pick that? Because this never happens. And this is a federal court case.
And it went on from there. I just, that's what really upset me, because then they didn't meet for 7 months. And in the process of that, we're trying, Rosario's trying to get this resolution going where they would schedule this all in the same thing. It gets passed. David Dyer comes out and just, gets upset with it and says he creates a big stink, sends an email and says, you guys taken away my right to vote on this position. And I'm like, the vote happened in April. You weren't even elected yet. And this goes on and on and on. I mean, it totally soured any work being done in that committee. And
this
it was
is the
all
definition
politics.
of politics. This is all politics.
It was
This has
lowball.
nothing to do, like you said before, Joanne, with merit. This has nothing to do with merit. They were literally going to the news and having problems before she was even on the committee.
Well, and they basically, it's obvious they had a coup before Dyer was even elected. I mean, he gets elected and he's like offended that he wasn't included in the vote. Well, obviously he feels that way because he was included in all of the other conversation before he got elected.
And the thing about that is, she said, even in her speech, that she goes, and I told her that November 19th, she'll be off the board, meaning that she was talking to Mr. Dyer and this is the way it was going to go. It took another month. They did it in December. That's whatever, but the point of all that is that these people had no intention of negotiating as honest brokers of the joint action plan. And Tony Brown said in 2018, when this thing was passed on August 24th of 2018, he said to WPTV News, he goes, well, to me, this is just a, what's the word he used? He called it ceremonial, because he was upset. Two of the sections that were in the 94 plan, which I believe were considered unitary status, one of them being the support staff and all that stuff, and then the facilities were removed. And so he called it ceremonial. And he didn't like it. In 24, he said, get the thing out of my face. We've got a systemic problem. I don't blame anyone here. It's the system. Well, if it's the system, then you have to destroy the whole public school system and rebuild it from scratch according to the way he thinks it should be done. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
No.
People are crazy.
Every meeting they had, they were stalling it with these definitions, renewal rate, retention rate, as if they didn't understand any of it. It's all you got to do is write it down and you can understand it. But they kept coming back. And then Dr. Shafty kept telling them, look at the paperwork we sent you. And she'd give them the numbers 2.2 or whatever. And they're like, did you guys not look at this stuff before you got here? And then the last meeting, they wanted to ask them about questions. I think Moore was asking them, tell us what questions you have. And they're like, well, no, we're not going to do that now. You know, it's like, so you're going to go back again and then come back with questions that they can't prepare for, because that's what Moore wanted. He wanted to prepare for their questions, trying to be proactive, since every time they come to the table, they are clueless to what's going on. And there's no progress.
That's right.
How do you work with somebody that doesn't get the program that they're pushing for? They don't understand any of it.
Right. Well, they don't want to solve this because they think that African-American students and teachers are not being treated fairly. That's what they have in their mind, with no data and no facts. And, you know, what we've seen with the hate across the social media, when we've put, you know, just a couple of these things out, you know, or, you know, put timestamps for people to listen to, you know, what was actually said, is, you know, they're turning around and calling us racist and, you know, all of these things, and saying, no, like, we are looking out for all children, right? We are looking for all of these policies, all of these procedures. This desegregation affects everybody, not just African-American students and staff. So
that's right.
You know, that's where the kind of disconnect is that they're saying, you know, people like Jackie Rosario is racist and she doesn't like black kids and she doesn't like black staff, but they have zero facts when they come out strong with their loud voices of misinformation.
No, they
you know
haven't
what's really
been able to
funny?
prove.
I mean, what's interesting to me is that at the last desegregation work group on the 24th, right, Jennifer, is 24th
That's right.
April, they, for the first time, they discussed transportation. Transportation's led by the director of transportation, Jennifer Idelette. Jennifer Idelette's father is Joe N. Idelette Jr. He's one of the original guys in the case, along with his two sons, Anthony and Joe III. Okay, they're the ones who hired the NAACP out of Jacksonville to help them get legal counsel to rightfully go to the court and get the schools integrated, because he wanted to send his kids to other schools across the way that had better facilities and things like that, and they denied him. They also denied Raymond Sharpton his ability to do the same. It made perfect sense. Okay, and this guy, then he gets it. They get desegregation. 1969 is the final order. Actually, it's better than the 67 order. And it was based on the freedom of choice schools that the superintendent at the time, J.A. Thompson, had created. And he retired in 69. The guy was there he was superintendent from 1949 to 69. Imagine that. And so anyway, he does all this, and then he becomes a school board member in 1974 and serves for the next 20 years, all the way up until when the NAACP takes the case over entirely. Think about that. Okay. Did a lot of things. And the primary concern at the time, because it was a nationwide concern, especially in the South, was busing. You know, the way we're going to solve desegregation is we're just going to bus kids out of their neighborhoods over to this school, over to that school, blah, 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 blah. And Indian River actually handles it pretty well, according to the newspaper that I've been looking at. But, you know, someone said it's like 400 years of history. Everyone has to change their mindset in a day. And I understand that that's a big psychological push. But all that to be said, here you have the daughter who runs transportation present, and they don't want to vote for it today. And you know, the big thing that if you read the newspapers from 94, when the NAACP took over, the big buzzword at the time was, we are dealing with multiculturalism. Remember that, Joanne, back from the 90s?
No.
I mean, multiculturalism was the original buzzword, which you would call DEI today.
Oh, yeah. No.
That's where, you know, the disparate groups, multiculturalism recognizes the disparate groups. Wow. And that was the original terminology. And you go back and read some of these newspapers, I could show them to you. And it's all about that in the deseg order, dealing with multiculturalism and the different races and cultures and blah, blah, blah. Same thing as DEI today. It hasn't changed. None of this has changed. DEI isn't nothing new.
Right.
You know, it's just repackaged political legalese. That's all it is.
Yeah, I grew up oblivious to any of that. You know, I grew up in New York City and there was just so many races around me. I just never felt any of that till I moved to Florida. And
Different world.
yeah, totally different world. Like, did not look at people by the color of their skin, you know, not at all. It was never an issue when I was growing up. It was what was an issue when I was growing up was your class. Either you were poor, you were middle class, you were upper middle class, what clothes you had. People could tell who you were or how you lived by what you wore to school.
Is whether or not you had any Jordache jeans. Is that what you're
Yeah.
Members only jackets?
Yeah. It was
Jennifer's like, what is it?
thing.
What are they talking about?
Yeah. That's okay. We had different things that showed, you know, class. So no, absolutely. Yeah.
Like
And
British
you know,
Knights?
I was born in 1985, so I'll be completely honest. Being born in 1985, I went through the public school system. My parents went through the public school system. My children are going through the public school system. You know, they tell me at 16 and 19 years old, you know, this is not an issue, Mom. Like, everybody sits together in the cafeteria. Everybody plays sports together. Everybody hangs out on the weekends. You know, they're doing the grad walks right now. They're having graduations. They're having graduation parties and proms. It is not segregated by race. Even when they choose, you know, their prom kings and prom queens, or, you know, the homecoming court, it is not segregated by race. You're having all races. You know, the IB students just got their diplomas. You know, and got their pinning ceremony. And there was African-American, there was white, there was Asian, there was biracial. It was just absolutely outstanding. I didn't get to actually go, but I watched it. And it was just, I mean, you look at that and, you know, when Thomas and I, we were making our speeches when they were getting rid of one of the policies and putting in a new safe and inclusive policy, we literally were looking at all the data of the top 10 students graduating from Sebastian River High School and Vero Beach High School. And we gave the stats and the captains of the, you know, sports teams and how it's so, you know, fair and, you know, the
diverse
of, right, African-American students versus white versus everybody else. So the biracial, I mean, it's just absolutely outstanding. And, you know, there was even a student that came and spoke. I think it was the February meeting, and he's on the superintendent cabinet with Dr. Moore. And he's like, this isn't a problem. I wish I could just play his speech every single time for citizen comment and say, listen, this is not a problem in our schools. And he kind of blamed this problem on the adults. And I completely agree. This is
February,
right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's so diverse. And, you know, it's, if anything, the kids that don't get opportunities are the kids that are mostly in lower income families. And it's because their families are not able to be involved either because they're working or they have other outside factors like drugs or drinking or violence, or those are the kids that are left out. You know, even I was a poor kid. I was raised by my mom, but I still got involved in like the track team and soccer. And I don't know who paid for it. I just filled out a form, got my mom to sign it, and brought it to school, you know. But a lot of kids that don't get involved in that stuff is because their lives are so tragic when they go home. It's not because of their race. It's basically because of the outside forces that surround their lives. Those are the disparaging things that hold back children. And children that flourish, you know, might have more ability to get involved in things. And that's probably the other area that we probably should look at in schools to make those programs more available. You know, when I was a kid, my mom worked from 3 p.m. to 12 midnight, and I would go to school, and they had an after school homework program and a bus that would get me home by 5. And from 5 till my mom got home at 12 midnight, I was home alone. They called us a lock key kid back then.
Latchkey, yes.
Yeah, and my mom would leave food on the stove. I'd warm it up, cook it, put it away. But if I didn't have that after school program to help me with my homework, I can guarantee you I would have went home, not did any homework, and those daylight hours I might have left the house. But because I got home at 5, I put on, Carol Burnett, and I watched Carol Burnett. I did some reading, and then I went to bed, a little after
Jen,
that.
Carol Burnett is a comedian.
I'm gonna put
At a
that in
variety show.
or welcome back, Cotter,
Welcome back. Oh my gosh. We're dating ourselves big time.
Yeah, we are. But I don't think it has anything to do with race. I think it has a lot to do with where the kids are financially and where their families are at. I know when I worked at Oslo Middle School, Beth Hofer was the principal, and the way to get parents to come in for parent night was food. You offered dinner. You put dinner on the table, and every parent comes in. And that was really a way to get engaged, because food is a hard thing to come by when you are in hard times. And that was one of the best ways to get the lower class families in to the school to engage with the teachers and programs and the puzzle pieces and education. And it worked, and I think we have to focus more on that in schools and get away from this Black African American desegregation thing, because we, like you guys said, we are not segregated. We're integrated. We're lacking if we're ignoring all the other positive things we can do to get these parents more engaged.
And the school, and and to your point, the school does do that. They had the State of the School speech with Dr. Moore, and then afterwards it was the unveiling of the new Vero Beach High School library, and there was food, and the kids who were doing the culinary program were making hors d'oeuvres and specialty coffee drinks and non-alcoholic drinks and refreshments. It was great, and you just saw the whole new library. Mm-hmm. There were hundreds of families there. It filled half of the auditorium. And so they're doing this all the time anyway. They're doing what you're talking about. It's just that this type of stuff it's the last, they always talk about get rid of the vestiges of du jour segregation. That's what the court calls it, the dual system. And now we're trying to get rid of the vestiges of race hustling.
Yeah, and the sad thing is the more they do this desegregation stuff and the conversations that they have, like Mershawn Green was talking, it's disparaging those kids. And those kids are believing and listening to a person that in their community, because she's an advocate, so she's out there, so they're looking at her as a mentor, and she's literally telling them that your skin color defines you. And that is like the worst thing you can tell a child, just as bad as it is to tell a young lady when she's growing up, your looks define you. That's what causes girls to be anorexic, right? So that's what causes children to be racist, because they're growing up thinking that because you're not as dark as they are, you're looking at them in a negative light. And that is child abuse. It really is.
Segregation's over. And so the people should be celebrating the victory that the country has achieved in the equality of opportunity in our school systems. We should just be doing that, and we should be celebrating it. We should be all saying yay. And now let's get on to the bigger, better things of getting people educated, getting people to achieve. You go and read February 11, 2025, go look it up in Vero News. Nick Samuel did a profile on the Idolette family. And that's awesome. Joy Idolette, the youngest of them, says in the article that even if you had straight A's, if there was a tardy, you were in trouble in our household.
I read that.
Yeah, and
I read that.
The discipline is way up here for those kids to achieve, and they all have done it.
And
that's the beauty of it.
It is. It's beautiful, because no matter what your stature is, whether your parents are rich, poor, or in the middle, if you set those standards for your kids and you say, and these expectations, but you do them in a loving manner. So if they come home with the C, you don't get angry at them. You just tell them, hey, what happened? What can we do to improve this? Because that's a learning, every moment is a learning moment with a child, and if we focus on that, if every parent does that, that is really something the kid can achieve and feel the love and support of their parent. And there's nothing more rewarding to a child than when their parent loves and supports them. And that is just, it's just priceless,
Yeah, and that's the beginning of that article is Joe Idlett Jr. going, God gave me these kids to raise, and I wanted to please God to do that. And him and his wife married 71 years. It's a phenomenal story.
Well, I like that story
because that family's story is so phenomenal. And yet we're over here in the peripheral at these work groups talking about whether or not a bus stop it has equity.
Yeah, and those
it's unbelievable to me.
Those stories are great because there are a lot of connected families here that go way back, and they're rooted. They're like Idolette. I never knew that, and I worked with Idolette when I was at Oslo because I had to do all the transportation for her, and I remember calling transportation and asking them,
amazing.
I want to create a form that makes it easy for the teachers to fill out and you guys to enter it in your system. And with her transportation lady, I worked with her and I created a form that had little merge pockets, and I gave it to the teachers. They filled it out, and then I sent that to them. But it's like I always wanted to make it better for them because I knew those ladies worked so hard in transportation. And just knowing that I had that relationship at the time and then reading that story, I was like, holy cow, I didn't know that. That's really a cool story.
It's an amazing story. Mm-hmm. I encourage you. Nick Samuel did a great profile on that.
He did. He really did. And we don't even know some of these amazing people that work here in the school district. And the school district should really be sharing some of those stories. Those are positive, beautiful, enlightening stories, especially for the Black African American people to know about their race and that it's grown in this community. And, I get it. When I moved here, I came from New York, I came from Orlando, but I moved to Florida from New York, and I didn't feel racism like they did here. But when I moved to Florida, the first time I moved to Florida, I ran into a segregated bar, and they said, do you know what kind of bar this is? And I'm like, well, it's just an upper class cocktail bar. Oh no, this is just for Black people, the richer Black people. And I'm like, you have that here? I just was like blown away. I'm like, they still do that? So I know that the history is pretty fresh here. It's from the 60s. So I get that there's older people like Brown that still is living in the past, but we need to open the eyes up to see all the beauty in these children and the families like Idolette that have
and that's
grown.
Beauty, and it's beauty that was done through forging integration in our schools. I mean, they stood up to the KKK and a lot of other people to do that, and that's what makes it so beautiful a story. Because in the midst of that, he's raising 6 kids, running a business, doing all those things.
And they all worked hard.
Incredible. Yeah. It's an incredible story.
Yeah. And it shows that family is strong no matter what your income base is. Like, you can be the poorest family, but if you're tight, you're built it on love and loyalty and strength, the family can rise. And that's what America is about.
Overcome. That's exactly right.
That's right. Well said. Well said. Yeah.
Anybody want a tissue?
Yeah. So that's why it bothers me with these school board meetings. So, in the school board meeting, Jackie Rosario starts asking questions of Dr. Moore. I don't know if we're going to play the clip or not, but basically debunking everything that was said.
Yeah, here she goes. She's asking the questions. And these were really good questions.
Right.
Have any unfair hiring practices in our school district?
No, ma'am.
Are we mistreating our students in any way?
Over my fired or dead body.
Are we
That's strong.
mistreating or treating differently any students based on their race, religion, creed, or anything of the like?
Absolutely not.
Are we doing anything nefarious in our community that would cause parents to mistrust our system?
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
That's bold. Him saying over my dead body after, Marshawn Green got up there and basically just vomited all of this misinformation for, I kept saying it was kind of a work of God, because usually somebody from our organization tries to go last to, really make a strong point to refute all of the misinformation. And she was last. And then Jackie Rosario asked all those questions of the superintendent of schools, who was the superintendent of Florida, one of the 4 national finalists for the country. So for him to come out and say over my dead body or absolutely not, and not just a hesitation of yes or no, was very powerful, I felt, in that meeting. And it literally gave me goosebumps to know that, okay, listen, they are doing the right thing. And what people are saying at the podium is not happening.
Well, and the other thing, I think he touched on it about the African American achievement grades going up yet again, like 9 points.
That's right. Yep.
And last year it went up. Don't quote me. It was somewhere between 7 and 11. Math, it was like 3 times that of any other category the state does categorize. They have Hispanics, white, other, and black. And we were 3.5 times in math and double in English. This year, he said it's 9 points. And that was the whole reason behind getting rid of that policy 2130, the achievement gap policy that was supposed to come into effect after the desegregation order. There was a declaration of unitary status. And the reason was, he said, even then, the same thing. If I'm not doing this work, raising the achievement levels of all people. By the way, he wasn't just raising the achievement level of black students. Every category was up.
Everyone.
At least,
Yep.
everyone was up. And he goes, if I'm not doing this work, fire me. Well, he's superintendent of the year. Why would you fire him now?
Yeah, and that should be the number one concern. What are we doing to raise the kids' scores? Let's not waste our time on this deseg order. And I remember I watched that when I heard him say that, and I was like, I know he truly believes that and wants to say that. But my rebuttal is this: what makes it untrue is that the deseg order and KPI mandates disregard merit-based and the merit-based anything across the board. And this is what's putting the damper on that. Yes, they are not unfair, but what is unfair is the deseg order, because it's segregating. It literally is segregating.
Either it's making cutouts, it's it's segregating based on what area it may be. There was this. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I had my 5 thoughts in my head, so I just better stop.
Yeah, because when he was saying that, I was like, I totally get where he wants to be. Like, he wants to say that, and he's because that's where he would be if this deseg order was out of the way. This deseg order is putting the divide in it. And I felt bad. I was happy that he said it, but at the same time, I felt bad because I knew the deseg order falsifies that in a sense, because this is the separation. This is the divide. And this is where the unfair hiring, the unfair renewal of contracts happen.
Well, and then the crazy expectations that these negotiations. So when you go back to mentoring, by the way, mentoring, they talked about mentoring in 5 of the 6 meetings that Jackie attended. Okay.
They did.
Mentoring had actually started back in March of 2024, March 7th, I guess it was. And they were talking about the mentoring KPIs and the data. And that's when that whole case had just happened prior with the 2 teachers who shot the guy in the back because they were drunk and all that stuff. We've talked about it before. And they faulted the mentoring program in that meeting for not teaching these kids how to not shoot people in the back.
Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely
and Dr. Moore says, these people, we're mentoring adults in their profession. We're not there to watch them at 3 a.m.
Life lessons, right?
That's
exactly.
right.
And to your point, that's what the deseg order does. It says, yeah, your mentoring program's not good enough.
Yeah.
Well, and it also says you have to hire
responsibility in that.
Right. You have to hire now 2 African Americans because the other 2 just got fired for criminal activity, when you could have, people like Joanne, who is a Caucasian female who is more qualified or more experienced or has a master's degree or whatever the case is. You're not going to hire the better person over race, which is again, it's a disservice to the children. It's a disservice to the other teachers when they have a teacher who could be helping them, or when they cover their class if they're out or sick, or God forbid have a family emergency or something. You're not getting the best teacher for those students and those other staff members.
Yeah, and Title VII is the equal opportunity. So where is that? Where's the equal opportunity? Now you've lost the 2 KPI hires. You need to replace them. So anybody else who's applying for the job, they're just wasting their breath if they're not Black African Americans.
Right. It's just like when you would hire a babysitter, right? Again, take it back to basics. Let's go back to common sense. When you're hiring a babysitter for your children, you're not looking at race. You're looking at who's best qualified, who's got CPR, who has kids maybe, or who's, had those great references with, glowing family results of, other recommendations. You're not looking at if they're Black or they're white or they're biracial. So again, why would we do that different for the school district? You're right. You're right. It's just because of the desegregation order. Because if that wasn't there and we reached unitary status, they would not have to hire based on race and meet the criteria.
Basically, we are at unitary status. This desegregation order takes us out of unitary status because it is the divide between the races,
Well, and the reason it takes you out of unitary status because the Joint Action Plan, the goalposts of its definition of unitary status is constantly changing. And we saw that again with the mentoring program, with you referenced earlier, the retention versus renewal rates. They said the KPI will be based on renewal rates. For those of you who don't know, quick study, contracts for teachers are renewed annually.
And staff. I was a contract staffer. Right. I got renewed
annually. So when, if a person leaves in the middle of the year, the contract's terminated because that's what happens. You terminate the contract for whatever reason, whether it's by voluntary or by, you've been fired. But termination does not always mean fired. It never rarely ever means fired in this case. And so people are always offered a renewal. They accept it. They don't accept it. Like Jen says, people leave for all sorts of reasons. And that's not necessarily known. So they're like, well, we want to interview HR department to find out why people weren't retained. Retained after they were renewed. And it's like, well, that's not the KPI.
Right. And Florida is a right to work state. You can quit at any time or you can fire anybody at any time. So
without any reason.
Yes, any reason. I mean, that's it's a pro in some situations and it's a con in some situations. And again, that has nothing to do with race, because when Dr. Shafty was doing her presentation, she said people would leave because they got a better job or their husband or wife was in the military or, something like that, or their child got sick. So that it has nothing to do with the lack of the mentor program. It had to do with real life problems that could have brought somebody to a different career or area.
Yeah. Well, and what's so funny about this is that, so they said, so Dr. Moore says, hey, you're in a public meeting and you agreed to the KPI on renewal rates. And they're like, well, we thought it meant this. And he says, well, we told you what it meant, and it's always meant that, and whatever else. And so now, you look at this whole thing and the lawyer's like going, they don't want to go to mediation because it costs them money, particularly the law firm, because, they're responsible for half. And you're working for an organization that doesn't have any money. So the law firm's going to pay for it. So the lawyer, the lawyer is writing, I got the email, the lawyer's writing, Mr. Carson, their representative. She says, well, disagreement is not a reason for mediation. It's like, well, it's not just a disagreement, it's an impasse.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had an impasse for 2 meetings, and the makeup of the process that Jackie was arguing about, who are the members and all that. In that process, it says if you have an impasse for 2 meetings, you can go to mediation. Right. They worked on this thing for 5 meetings. 3 of them were answering questions, or 6 actually.
Essentially a year. Yeah, because they only had 6 meetings in a year. So almost all of the meetings that they've had in a year had been on this one issue. And, they were fighting going to mediation. Again, you said because of the cost, but literally it took more than 5 hours, because they're usually 5 hour, an hour each, plus all the back and forth, plus the extra, off, air meetings that they met with, certain members with questions. So literally they've spent probably, I'd say, around 10 hours on this or more. And, it's like, my goodness, like at this point we need to go to mediation because the wheels fell off the bus somewhere, because you're
listen to this lawyer's word speak from this email. This email was dated March 22nd. They didn't have a meeting in March, by the way. She said, on mediation, and as we hope you would agree, discussion does not mean disagreement. Adding, and then she adds, we had thought our side was clear on the intention and definition when we proposed the KPI. What? Are you serious? So all this unspoken retention stuff is
wait a minute.
And then she says, it is under that lens that we have been reviewing the documents you have provided. The district's new interpretation does not align with our prior conversations on the matter. And I'm thinking to myself, what? If you know anything about government and law, they're going to be very exact, and you better know what you're agreeing to.
Now,
if these lawyers don't know, that's on them.
But didn't they have this all written out?
Yeah, that's
or
what
was this? It was all written out. So it's like a contract. So if you buy if you sign a contract
agree
for your
to
home, and you go back and say, "Well, I didn't understand the terms. I didn't understand the definitions." You're screwed.
Right.
You are.
Well, and that's why the NAACP.
So why aren't we in mediation?
Right. That's another reason why the NAACP is so upset with Jackie, because she went back and looked at the 2018 joint plan, and she looked that the work group is supposed to be doing the work, not the lawyers.
Exactly.
Right. The attorneys are helping, facilitate the meetings, or, not running the meetings like it was on the NAACP side. So they were attacking her, saying that she's being divisive and she's, not wanting to do this. Well, and she, in fact, is the only one that's listen, we need to do this right. This is how, the work group is supposed to work on what they agreed on, And
to his credit, Matt Carson, the lawyer, said readily, he said, I've asked you about this. I've told you about this before, this particular rule about membership. And once again, they ignored him.
Right, right.
And that's why it needs to go into mediation.
Yeah, I think we need to go to mediation on everything, because we are at unitary status. And if they don't understand that, and they're not reading the data, or they want to ask more definitions or ask for things that are not on the KPIs, we need to go to mediation with everything. I mean, at this point, let's just get it all out there. And if there's stuff that still needs to be worked on after going to mediation, then that's fine. But I think the mediator and, holding their feet to the fire and making them financially responsible for half of it, I think that the carrot isn't going to be dangled as long as it has been, with, the mentoring program of 5 meetings, which essentially was a year of time.
Right. And Moore's got so much to deal with right now. He's got new schools. He's got schools changing. He's trying to win back the parents that took their schools their kids out of school. That's a huge art, construction That's a huge thing to do right
And he
there.
referenced that. He referenced what you just said that night. He said, this is like the number 2 or number 3 thing I spend the most time on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's
Well,
all
and
over
even
this minutia that
his
doesn't
staff
matter.
as well. Yes, his staff as well. So even if he says, oh, we're taking out of the pot for this lawyer, all of these staff members who are spending the time doing this stuff, that costs us money because they could be doing something else. Dr. Shafty could be doing more with the innovation or things like that, So absolutely, it's costing us taxpayers and staff and everybody a lot of time and money for sure.
Okay, guys, we've got to take a break and then head to the panel.
Everyone, Lenka here with Jake, not from State Farm, with an important message.
Voices for Children of Okeechobee and the Treasure Coast is hosting a Teach a Child to Fish Day at Riverside Park on July 19th from 9 to 11 a.m.
It's not just a fun day on the water, is it, Jake? I mean, there is an educational factor.
Teaching a child to fish builds patience, confidence, and focus while fostering a deep connection with nature, family bonding, and respect for the environment.
It's a hands-on way to develop life skills, relieve stress, and a fun day on the water. And what better way for Indian River Connections to team up with another local organization to help teachers in underserved classrooms around the county? We will be there on July 19th, collecting supplies for our Stock the Classroom supply drive. It's important to keep classrooms stocked all year long so every student has the tools they need to learn and succeed. When supplies run low, teachers often pay out of pocket. That's where we can come together to lighten that load and support our teachers and students.
Wow, 2 great causes for the price of one. So, let me get this right. You're telling me one of our viewers right now can come to Riverside Park on that Saturday morning and learn to fish and drop off school supplies to help local classrooms?
Oh, you're a quick one, Jake. That's right. Saturday, July 19th, 9 a.m., and if you can help out or want more information, email Patrice at pbose@voicesforchildrenotc.org or comment below, and we'll make sure she gets the message.
Hey, guys, welcome back.
Man, who did Jake's sleeve?
I don't know, but I think he's making a move on Lenka's intern position. But what a great show. I mean, it's a horrible topic that we have to waste our time on, but I mean, it's sentiment across the country, like we talked off air about, where they overreach and they try to correct racism with more racism, that Ibram Kennedy style. Actually, Reverend John, I always screw his name up.
Ibram X. Kendi.
He actually mentioned that on Tim Pool's show, where that Ibram X. Kennedy style to combat racism, Kendi.
Yeah.
Well, his style to fight racism is more racism, and it just it doesn't work out. But I mean, the meeting produced a different outcome for the work group. I know it wasn't Jackie's wishes, and we didn't have unity on the board like Terry wanted or expected. I don't know what she expected, but I say good. Let the old white lady fix it. Put her on the work group board, and let the old white conservative lady fix racism in our school district. It's a win-win. I mean, because at
she's
this
not
point,
conservative.
Well, she was, but she was voted in as a conservative. That's what she ran as. But our opinions are different than what she ran as. But that's what I'm saying. Let's give it to Terry, because either way, the tensions are so high. They're not going to give it to Jackie. And like I said earlier, any attention we give this topic is just giving it good publicity, and it's just going to fuel on. And that's all these people want. They want existence and a reason to show up. And obviously, this unemployed equity advocate, she's got nothing better to do. I mean, she lost her job when her position was canceled, or
position was canceled. It was. Yeah, that was because the DeSantis administration stopped ESG, and that's another whole story.
Right.
Yeah, so, well, her advocacy is to create more racism in these young, beautiful children that could be growing up feeling comfortable in their own skin, but that's what she's preaching.
So I'm calling this decision good for conservatives in the county. Let Terry fix it, and if she doesn't, Hopefully she pays the political price next time around, because this next election is not going to be any prettier than the last two. I mean, right now we're looking at Jackie Rosario, Dr. Pasca's, and Terry Barrenborg's seat. So I don't, they're not going to give
that's right. Their seats are up again.
They're not going to give this win to Jackie no matter what. She might as well be the white conservative on the board. You know, they don't look at her as a Puerto Rican or as a minority. And it's a right versus left.
They don't look at her as qualified, even though she has 3 master's degrees.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, when the superintendent talks about, or David Dyer mentioned that 70% of third grade is up to reading standards, and the demographic.
That's his goal.
Okay, well, the demographic making the biggest strides are the African American community.
Yes.
That's also the community who can use more parental mentoring, not teacher mentoring. We see this in the community. Kids can't read. Third graders are 4 or 5 words at best, and their parents are preoccupied. You know, they're preoccupied, but yet they think it's the school district's responsibility to raise their children. You know, we are, as a parent, my kids expected to already be learning when I send them to public school. I'm not sending them a blank slate to mold. That's my child. I have a responsibility to make sure my child can read and will read. So I think this whole, you know, let's throw more money at it, I think they're going in the wrong direction. I think they really need to work on parenting. It's not
well, and you know, and that's just something that, like,
responsibility though.
That's something in my research about Mr. Eilert and his career as a school board member. You know, he refers to that many times. He says, you know, I can't make parents be parents. And he had 6 kids. Like I said, we talked about it here, and the beautiful thing that their family has done. And he recognized that as a school board leader. He says, not all parents are like he was. And so he would work with kids and after school programs, tutorings, and all these different things that he did. And so, you know, that has to happen. You're right. And some parents just don't have that type of time because of making ends meet and all the other things. But everyone's an individual. And I think that's the key to all this. You know, one of the things about these affirmative action, racial quotas, and all this stuff, it comes out of that place of removing the individual from the equation and just starting to focus on groups or factions of groups. And that's a Democrat way. You know, it's a disparate, or it's an organization of a bunch of disparate groups. No one is necessarily treated as an individual. They're treated as an outward characteristic. You're Black, you're Hispanic, you're trans, you're this, you're that. Join us. We'll help you all collectively, you know, check certain external boxes that we can exploit rather than your individual, who you really are.
Right.
And I think that's something that conservatives understand.
Yes, the statistics and demographics, I think it actually takes away from children and minorities. I mean, it takes away from everybody's civil liberties when there's quotas to meet and exceptions to be made just because one may be of a different race. I think it's bad, but I want to see that attention put towards their community. Organizations like the NAACP, I don't see it. Maybe they are. I'm not in that community, but I don't see book drives or school supply drives. I see them.
The schools do a school supply drive, right, Jen? They do certain things.
Organizations do. Yeah, there's organizations that do it for like the Hibiscus House or for teachers. I know other organizations will do it for like a seasoned teacher or a new teacher. So there's organizations all over the county before, you know, schools start up. They'll start collecting backpacks and supplies. I'm sure Joanne, there was a bunch that brought them to Joanne's school too. You know,
a lot of churches did it this year too as well.
We will be this year also on July 19th at Riverside Park. That Lanka, we just heard from Lanka and Jake, but we'll be with Voices for Children of Okeechobee and the Treasure Coast, and we'll be at Riverside Park. And that was our goal. I mean, we didn't really want to send a bunch of stuff home to students, but we would like to gather quite a bit to send to the teachers who have to restock after a couple weeks and or after a couple months. So hopefully we can make an impact like that, like we do at Christmas time with families, except
You know, it
not.
would be nice to know which schools.
Sounds excellent.
It would be nice to know which schools are the Title I schools, because they also get Title I money as well, and maybe tap into some of the schools that are like borderline Title I that just missed that Title I grant but could use it. Because the schools that get the Title I schools, like when I was the admin, I used to buy I just didn't get the backpacks, but I got the 3-ring binders, I got the dividers, I got the Sharpies, I got the crayons, I got everything to start them up for the school year. The whole
Title I
package.
Binford over there.
Yeah.
But that's what the money's for. It's to supply your school for those low income families that don't have schools, that don't have the money to buy for their
all that
kids.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah,
We
so
want to
that's
really
what we would do.
we want to spoil the teachers, whether they think like us or not. I want to be able to leave an impression on them that people in their right mind care for the job they're doing, as long as they're doing the right job, and hopefully we can make an impact for next school year. But all this stuff about race, like you said, it's the superintendent's like number 2 or 3 time consumption. It's a waste of time, and I think we should see more of them in the schools and not having to waste time doing desegregation. But I'm all for the media. Just send it back to the court. Like it's time.
It's time for the judge to make a decision.
Right.
Yeah. Hopefully the DOJ will pick it up, or the AG will pick up from our complaints and say, listen, we're not doing this anymore. And, I sent the meetings as well. I sent all the YouTube videos of the last couple meetings. So if they even just wanted to click on one and just pick a segment of it to see how unproductive it was, hopefully, somebody will pick it up and say, enough is enough. And it's been over 60 years. And, they keep moving. They ask for more data. They ask more questions, and it's not going anywhere. So hopefully, somebody will be able to pick that up and fix this for Indian River County for sure.
Well, I think the NAACP is near extinction, and that's why they're fighting so hard for this desegregation order to create segregation, because we are so diversified as a nation. Why do we need the NAACP anymore?
Correct. Well, I know everybody's got a busy Friday night. I don't want to take any more of y'all's time. Jen, is there anything upcoming for Moms for Liberty we want to let people know?
Yeah. So our meeting's always the third Thursday of the month, but a lot of our parents, grandparents, and community members are going to be celebrating the ending of the school year. So with, proms and grad walks and graduations coming up the next couple of weeks. So a lot of fun stuff, a lot of testing going on, state testing. They test 3 times a year. So the third set of testings coming up. So it's going to be very, very busy with Moms for Liberty. The legislation session just ended. So we're going to be looking at all the new laws. So if people want to get involved, momsforliberty.org, click on Indian River on the map, join us. We're on Facebook. We have a website. So it's really super easy to connect with us. And you don't have to be a mom. You could be a dad, a grandparent, a community member, and just, if you're looking to make education better and you want to advocate for parental rights and children, join us.
Awesome. Thomas, anything exciting coming up for the Sunshine Journal?
I'm doing a little editorializing on this whole thing, and I sent an email to the board, and I'm just modifying it a little bit for reader purposes, and it should be out probably this weekend.
I did post your speech from the school board meeting, giving the school board the district props for budgeting.
You did that on X, I remember. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we're trying to push our presence on X. It's kind of hard, but if you're watching locally or not local, we are on X. We'd like to build there, and I'd like to encourage more people locally to get on X, because this Facebook thing, you never know when they're going to pull the plug on that, or YouTube. So if you're watching at home, make sure you follow us on X and on Rumble and
if you run the Moms for Liberty public page, your profile is always under scrutiny.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure. Well, guys, anything else, Joanne?
No, that's it. Thank you guys for coming to on the show, the board report,
Yes.
and thank you
Awesome
to the
show.
viewers that joined us, because this is a really good topic for you guys to be well informed about, especially if you're going to watch the meetings. You know, you've got to hear the other side of the topic as well. And sorry to see that Jackie Rosario did not stay on that board, because she brings a lot of good information, and she does a lot of research and follows the laws. So we'll see how it moves forward from here with Barenborg being on the board. And good luck. You know, remember, we are a diverse community. We love you. We don't care what your skin color is. And just work hard and make yourself the best person you can be.
You be you.
Good. Thanks, guys. And I say good for Jackie. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Thank you guys. Have a great
Bye,
weekend.
guys.
Indian River Connections brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more. Sponsored by Gus Curran's House of Champions.